As a child, I grew up seeing both my mother and my father run small businesses. My dad, he's a man's man. My father, I saw him recruit external financial capital to support his startup. This is almost over 30, 40 years ago. In that startup, I saw him work long hours to build his portfolio and his credibility. As of today, the business is over 30 years old and he has employees and he's living pretty nicely. He's semi-retired now. Mom, my dear mama. Mother and I worked with her hand in hand. As a little child, I helped her with her small businesses. In that, the type of administrative services that she provided with these clients, such that technology made her business extinct. I saw this happen. Unfortunately, I also saw her fund her business through her own personal equity. No to little external capital was provided. So, it's an innate in me to love entrepreneurship. I started a nonprofit, I have a desire to start more businesses, and I'm an engineer by trade. So I love technology. So what I want you to do is walk with me in some different trends. Let's walk together and see a couple of trends. One, let's go to 1948. I wasn't born yet. But in the 20th century, the women were just starting to go more into the workforce. At that time, only 30% was in the workforce. From 1948 to now, they moved to 57% of women started to go into that workforce. And economists say that in the 20th century, that economy, it was the biggest tailwind boom because of women entering the workforce, they began to acquire more education. Now let's speed forward currently. That gap now is only 13% wide. Back in 1948, that gap was 57% wide of women participation. That gap has now narrowed. And this is just a great visual that I like to show. The blue being the male and the red being the female, over time, how that gap has closed. So knowing that in the 20th century, the GDP basically had the boom, but now we're into the 21st century, economists are saying that the GDP will not have the same type of tailwind with the participation of even more women going into the workforce. So everyone is trying to figure out, what do we do to get this economic boom going again for the 21st century? So let's talk about GDP, the gross domestic product. The gross domestic product, economists tell us that that's the health of our economy. Okay. They say last 100 years, it grew 3% every year. But they're projecting that we will only grow only 2%. And every time you go lower in that GDP, that means that the economy is not as healthy. That means that we won't see as many raises, etc. When we know now that the GDP is only 2%, so let's talk about technology and high-tech firms. As we know the famous Googles, Facebooks, Cisco systems, etc. We're in the technology era. That is considered the high-tech or high-growth firms. So how many women entrepreneurs represent high-tech firms? It said in 2007, there were about 7.8 million firms from women. Only 2% of them are considered high-tech. Of those 2%, there's only even less than that have $1 million per year of revenue. So there's an untapped market for women to be more into this high growth type firm, even minorities. So let's talk about a survey that Kauffman Foundation has done in regards to entrepreneurship in general. So they did one survey that really focused on technology entrepreneurs, women in technology firms. They looked at the CEOs, all these different type of tech leaders. And what they found is that their findings, they had 3 findings. One, these women CEOs compared to our male counterparts, and I love my male counterparts, just know that. My male counterparts is that basically they lack mentors, and our male counterparts had mentors. Number 2, they had women view success differently and failures differently than men. And number 3, which I really want to focus on, is they found that a critical challenge was raising financial capital. hence my example of my dear mom and my dear dad. This chart shows basically what they found in another survey by Studdard, that basically men are able to assess financial capital 3 times more than women. And this visual is just to show that. If a woman is startup, they basically are able to pull together $65,000, and it's usually their personal equity. Whereas men, they raise a startup $150,000. Let's learn from the man, eh? This is an example of, as I mentioned, about the 7.8 million technical firms for women within here in the United States. And their receipts, they're saying that on average, they receive about $130,000 worth of receipts. Whereas our men counterparts, they receive over $570,000 receipts. Again, there's something to be learned here. So, because there's an untapped opportunity for more women to be in high technology firms and to help the economy, well, how do we do that? We help the economy by, if we can raise more capital, external capital, we're able to generate jobs. Studies tells us that there is a direct relationship with, if you can raise more external capital for high-tech firms, you are projected to grow further in your business. Let's refer back to mom and dad. My father was able to raise external capital, and now he has sustainability over 30 years. And dear mother, let's just say I'm inheriting some of those skill sets from mom. So in regards to raising more capital, we have to be able, if we want growth, we want to be able to have women to have accessibility to this capital, venture capitalists, and angel networks. Well, how do you do that? One is that you have to offer education. One study says that they even think that we should probably offer education to our young students in primary and secondary schools. I'm all for it. They can gather entrepreneurship skills such that they say that if they learn early, the survival rate will be able to be increased more, and the success rate will increase more as these students learn a little bit earlier about entrepreneurship skills. Lastly, we can expose, if these women are exposed to successful entrepreneurs, that is a direct link to show and learn from stories and also their challenges to learn from others, okay? Thanks so much. And so what is that? So let's talk about, let's end with this. So how do we make the 21st century economic boom? Let's invest in women entrepreneurs, high-tech firms.